And blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And the idea of whether or not the city, the state, the country wants a baseball stadium so people can play baseball, particularly Boise State can play baseball for the upcoming season, I guess, in a couple of years. Of course, that was the reason why the wrestling program was eliminated to pay for baseball. And now it looks like eminent domain could be used to spur people to sell their places to Boise State so they can build this stadium. I mean, at what cost? At what cost will I guess the educational institution stoop to getting this baseball stadium? Wrestling, out of the way. Place for a stadium? Well, eminent domain. Is the Treasure Valley really that passionate about collegiate baseball? Are you that passionate about collegiate baseball that you would endorse the State Board of Education giving Boise State the opportunity to use eminent domain? Doesn't that usually happen in California? Max, welcome back. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller.
Hey, Kevin. You know, we have a two-pronged problem here. One, of course, is the eminent domain issue. Eminent domain translates to, I'm going to steal your land. But the other one is even more, why are my tax dollars paying them to play baseball and football? Why do any tax dollars go into collegiate sports? Why, if they can't support themselves on a club basis, shut it down. If football can't make it, shut it down. We don't need our tax dollars going so they can play baseball, play football, issue scholarships for sports. This is an extremely expensive undertaking, and they're graduating with substandard baccalaureates. There are people graduating with a bachelor's degree who can't pen a decent letter to their mother. But, boy, they can sure play baseball, football, and they can wrestle. I know I'm going to hack off a lot of people out there, but I'll tell you what, if you want your tax dollars to go to playing football, baseball, basketball, you're stupid.
Well, it's a great deal for collegiate sports because they're subsidized by state, local, and national governments, and they make a ton of money.
If they make a
football,
ton of money,
right?
Why can't they support themselves?
That's a good question.
You know, everybody says they make millions on Boise State football. Yeah, where's the money go? If they're making all that money, why do I have to help them? Why do I have to pay if they're already making a lot of money? Does that make sense?
No, I would agree with you. And the idea that, you know, we're going to get rid of one program, we're going to fund another one that already their own bookkeeping says is going to be at a loss, and then we're going to build this stadium. We're not, I mean, who does that in business?
I would think that if common sense was present, even an iota of it, we would pass an ordinance, a bill, something saying to the universities, if you want to play sports, that's wonderful. If you want to issue scholarships for sports, that's terrific. But you've got to pay your own way in the athletic department. That's not the same as math, chemistry, English. It's not the same. It's a sport. So let's make it real. If you want to play football, baseball, support yourself on a club basis. Don't build a football stadium on Grandma's farm.
Right. Grandma needs her farm. All right. Thank you, Max.
Okay.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. So here we have it. The Board of Education yesterday approved Boise State University request to continue its attempt to acquire property for the new baseball stadium and possibly using eminent domain. Now, the school has agreed to buy the land, and you're looking at Grant Avenue, West Beacon Street, South Denver Avenue, but they can't come up with a price. Thursday's motion by the State Board, by the way, the State Board also firing Dr. Rob Spear of the University of Idaho. Think about that one. You know, are we ever really going to know what happened, what didn't happen in Moscow? Okay, so this motion allows Boise State to pursue the land despite currently stalled negotiations using eminent domain or condemnation. Eminent domain is a tool used to acquire private property for public use after being deemed in the best interest of the public. The private property owner is compensated accordingly for the land. In other words, Cheap Charlie. So That's my point of view. I'd love to hear from yours at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I don't see, and look, it's not that I'm right, like the big man who's right 97.9% of the times. I'm not. I'd love to have a 500 batting average, but I don't see an overwhelming need in the best interest of the public to go in, clear people off their land for a price that they don't want to sell. Now, eminent domain for a highway, all right. Eminent domain for a baseball stadium, college sports, I don't think that's in the best interest. Eminent domain to build a downtown baseball/soccer stadium, I don't think it's in the best interest of the public. Do you? And here's another thing that maybe I'm missing. We are very blessed to live here. And we have a lot of challenges. And, I'm reading the Boise Guardian, and just very interesting article by Dave Frazier where he says, Idaho growth defies logic. Our air is dirty all summer due to forest fires. We have inversions all winter. We rank in the top 10 states for minimum wage jobs. Teacher pay is near the bottom rung of the ladder. Housing costs are so high there is no affordable housing for the worker bees. West Ada School District has annual bond elections to build new schools. ACHD needs more cash for roads. Jails and prisons are stuffed. We don't have enough police. And it goes on. And then he puts in all caps, so why do we keep attracting more people to come here? Good point. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And then you have people that could lose everything just because certain select moneyed interests want their pet political projects. Now, do you want to put a baseball stadium in Meridian or Nampa? I think that makes more sense. Well, you just have an anti-Boise bias. Maybe I do. But if you build it in the center of the Treasure Valley, well, then you have a chance to attract more people from other parts instead of just Boise City. Of course, Boise City, there's more taxes, more revenue generated for the people that like that, to build more and more government institutions. I just think it's crazy. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, that the state board would give Boise State the tool they need to get this done. I don't really get it. And I've, been around sports, covered sports, watched sports. I don't really get the fixation with baseball that you're going to use public funds to do this. Back to Mac's point. Look, this place has a lot of good things going for it, a lot of great things going for it, a lot of great people here. But on the other hand, you think to yourself, are you willing to pay? And we see even with the monstrosity that is St. Luke's, where they've literally taken over city blocks because of their construction. They've, you talk about what is lost to that inconvenience. Crazy. All right, I won't belabor that topic, but I think it's something worth noting at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. On the other hand, we lost a great American icon, a great American entertainer. And we've been hearing tributes for the Queen of Soul for quite some time. And Aretha Franklin, yes, great person, wonderful entertainer. Here's a snapshot of what she meant to the country and what she meant to the world.
She had a great sense of humor. She was so funny because sometimes she would call me and say, Franzi, I have a joke for you. And then she would tell me the joke, and then she would just have an amazing laugh. She had a really robust, go.
I'm depressed, I'm sad, a little melancholy, everything. You know, I love Rita. She's my idol.
It's a tragedy, but when a person like that dies, you remember all the good things that she done.
She transcended art. She transcended music. She was the embodiment of the black movement in the 1960s. She was the embodiment of female empowerment in the 1960s.
Great artist, a singer. She has so much love and feeling to her music, so it's definitely going to be missed.
We lost our queen. There's several people that have come with that title after, and God bless them all. Queen of this, queen of that, but that was the queen.
There we have it, remembering Aretha Franklin. Many people touched by her loss, including the President of the United States, making a statement about Aretha Franklin.
Well, I want to begin today by expressing my condolences to the family of a person I knew well. She worked for me on numerous occasions. She was terrific. Aretha Franklin, on her passing. She's brought joy to millions of lives, and her extraordinary legacy will thrive and inspire many generations to come.
Thank you, Mr. President. Coming up next, we're going to take a look at a couple of issues. Kids in cars and how to prevent forest fires. That's next with me, Kevin Smokey the Bear Miller, on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. One of the stories that we didn't get a chance to talk a little bit about is what happened in court last week, and that is Timmy Kenner, accused of killing a 3-year-old, Riaya Kedar, and injuring 8 others during a June rampage at the Wiley Street Station Apartments. Had an appearance recently in court. Let's take a listen to see how it broke down.
In court today for the family of a little girl stabbed to death at her own birthday party. 3-year-old Ruya Kadir was among 9 people attacked in a bloody rampage at Boise's Wiley State Street Apartments on June 30th. Suspect Timmy Kenner was back in court today for his district court arraignment. Our Katie Terhune was in court and has more on this heartbreaking story.
As the hearing wrapped up this morning, little Ruya's mother started screaming at her daughter's accused killer. She asked him, "Why'd you kill my baby? Why?" Judge Nancy Baskin blocked us from recording video or audio in the courtroom, but allowed the still photography you're seeing here. Kenner could face the death penalty if he's convicted of first-degree murder. He's also facing charges of aggravated battery, aggravated assault, burglary, and use of a deadly weapon. The indictment outlined the gruesome injuries to the 5 children and the 3 adults who tried to protect them. Ruya, who was stabbed in the face, was airlifted to a hospital in Salt Lake City, but did not survive her injuries. A motive for the rampage remains unclear. Police say Kenner was new to Boise and did not know any of the victims. According to investigators, the suspect was angry at someone else in the complex he had briefly stayed with. They say that after he discovered that person wasn't home, he targeted the birthday party a few doors down instead. Prosecutors have not yet publicly announced whether they'll seek the death penalty. Kenner's defense attorney asked today for more time before the suspect enters a plea.
Before he enters a plea, unfortunately, it's pretty much cut and dried for old Timmy there. And here you have a mother who's trying to deal with the loss of her 3-year-old beautiful little girl. And, in this ADD world that we live in, we hear about these bad things. Everybody rallies. Everybody has a vigil. And then we go back to our normal lives, right? And yet here you have this family, new to the Treasure Valley, new to this area, suffering a tragedy that hopefully none of us will ever have to go through. By the way, thanks to our friends, our news partners at Channel 7. And here you have Timmy, who said, that his rights were violated. Like I said, I never want to turn this into a referendum on the prosecution. We have the utmost faith in them that they will do the right thing in this case and send the right message that this is not tolerable here or anywhere. Traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, Larry. Let's go to Lori in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Lori.
Hello, Kevin. A couple things on this eminent domain issue. First of all, Boise State has bought up probably 3 years ago all this land along Chrisway Street and so on off of University there, and between there and Boise Avenue, and it's lots and lots of homes, and I don't know what they're planning to do with that, but they've also bought up like the Catholic building, the LDS, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Institute there, and they're supposed to be providing some kind of what they call a religious circle or something, you know, where people can build over there closer to on Boise Avenue, I guess. But so that's going on, and it's probably buildings and so on. But the idea of I just don't agree with the Board of Trustees allowing an eminent domain action for a baseball stadium, and that brings up another issue of Title IX, how it's just hurt sports. Period. I mean, it should be more on the basis, not entirely against women's sports that don't bring very much income in, but also just the idea of how many athletes can be involved and so on. And well, and more of a free market too. Not how many athletes can be involved, because girls, you know, they want to do their sports too, but it doesn't attract that much money. Number one, and it's just not fair. And because of that, because of Title IX, almost all the wrestling programs are gone throughout the nation. And but back to the eminent domain issue, if people haven't seen the movie Little Pink House or read the book that Jeff Benedict wrote, he's that sports author, and about how they use the takings clause in the Supreme Court, actually, and that's the importance of voting for conservative justices, because it was a 5-4 decision, and Justice Souter was one of those Republican appointees that went with it 5-4. They took the property by eminent domain of this lady that resisted, Kelo, Kelo, and went all the way, and they said that they wanted to build a development to revitalize the downtown area and so on, and it's vacant, and it was left vacant for years. They tore down this beautiful pink home, and she was the only little pocket that resisted this Pfizer pharmaceutical was behind the supposed redevelopment, and it sat there and became weed infested after they tore everything out because the project fell through, and they used this obscure little reference, and it was not constitutional, and so the idea that because it's very scary that the government has expanded through that Supreme Court decision. So who knows? Maybe something will come up with our new, more conservative justices to overrule that case, because it is so wrong.
Well, Lori, I go back to your point with eminent domain, and we talk about sports being a meritocracy, but with the exception of a couple women's basketball programs, they're all money losers, number one. Number two, so that's, what is that, sports socialism? Number two, I don't see the public good in building a Boise State baseball stadium that's not going to attract a bunch of people in the heat. Again, it's a marketing aspect to get more people to come here, I suppose. And this downtown stadium, I don't see the passion for baseball. And, you want to do it like everybody else does. You go buy the land, you do it fairly, you pay a market price, and you put your own money into it. That we subsidize this stuff, and they've already said that baseball is going to be a money loser.
Yeah, well, they tried that city stadium thing over there off of Americana.
I don't think people really want it. I think it's just up to a select group of investors and public officials that want to make this happen.
Yeah, it's just more crony capitalism, and the universities. We just need to get more people involved at the top, and what the Board of Trustees is allowing in the universities and all that, and quit subsidizing stuff that we don't want our kids. I mean, the very fact that these universities, and I'm all pro university, but we need more control over what they're teaching. The content is, we are allowing them to dictate the demise of our country because of the philosophy that's been, you put them in the university and they turn out to be Antifa. What's that about? I'm just not okay. We need more philosophical restraints. We need more economic restraints on these universities, and they're just gobbling up way too much of our money. So I'm all for education, but I'm not for capitalism.
Lori, I've never understood, and this goes back over 30 years when I went to school, how college tuition goes up every year. The buildings are there. Most of them are paid for, unless you're giving a lot of money to the staff, and most of the staff would disagree. But, where is all this money going that'll, spurs us to make sure that we, the kids have to pay more and more? I don't get the escalating costs.
Yeah, well, they're indentured servants. When it comes right down to it, you can't bankrupt out of it. And so you're just pretty much indentured servants.
Well, and that's the student loan crisis that Mr. Wonderful Obama said that he would address and didn't, yes.
Right. So anyway, I recommend, see the movie Kilo, the Little Pink Houses. It's an eye-opener. And I just think we need to speak to our, I'm going to write the Board of Trustees and say, this is not okay, and Boise State too. This is not okay. That does not serve the higher public good. I mean, those houses that they're talking about are houses that students by the thousands are living in right now. So where are they going to go? They're right next to the university. They're just old, humble houses like I was raised in here in Boise, little humble houses, and they're taking them out for a baseball stadium that's going to sit, half empty. This is not okay. Anyway, that's my...
All right, Lori.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
More coming up, plus remembering the legend Aretha Franklin. Want to hear more from you. Are you down with baseball at Boise State? Down with baseball in Boise? Are you willing to pay more in taxes for it? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Time to find out what's going on from our news partners at Channel 7.
From the news channels.
And remembering the Queen of Soul. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And coming up, Fox News on your radio. Speaking of Fox News on your radio, we go to Tanya J. Powers, remembering Aretha Franklin and remembering the King from a Memphis perspective. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you take a look at the life of Aretha Franklin, passing on the same day as Elvis. Your perspective from Memphis.
Well, it's one of those things that, you never want to have to report a story like this because that means, somebody important to so many people is gone. The fact that it happened on the same day that Elvis died, 41 years apart, obviously, but still, that holds a lot of significance for a lot of people. In Memphis here, of course, it's Elvis Week, and that's what I've been covering all week. And I've been talking to Elvis fans. And when we found out earlier in the week that Aretha Franklin was, gravely ill, I asked people about that out at Graceland who were here for Elvis Week, and they, had the same kind of reverence for her that they did for Elvis. A lot of them talked about, how both of these people were so iconic. For the ground that, especially that Aretha Franklin broke. I mean, she basically opened the door for everybody else to come after her. It's just her contribution to music it's kind of like Elvis's. It just really almost can't be measured. But people were talking about it even earlier in the week. And, the fact that when we heard about it yesterday, I knew that one of the places I was going to have to go to talk to people and was looking forward to it. And at the same time, I knew it would be an emotional thing to see, was going to her birthplace, which is here in Memphis. She was born in a house on 406 Lucy, which is a little wooden home. It's boarded up now. There's no one who lives in it, but it now has a historical marker in the front of it, at least. So hopefully it will be preserved and they can, do something with this. But people were out there laying flowers on the ground, and they had notes and teddy bears, and they were putting some on the front porch. The plywood over the windows was actually kind of serving as a note board for people to write their, remembrances of Aretha or, the Queen of Soul or something like that on there. People had come out of the house next door, across the street really, and had a speaker and Aretha music playing on it. So you're standing in the front yard of the home where she was born and where her life started, and you're listening to Respect blaring across the street, and all these people are, having an equal parts, celebration of her life and also a very emotional time remembering, what she means to them.
Tanya J. Powers joining us from Memphis, talking about Aretha Franklin and Elvis Presley. You take a look at Memphis Week in Graceland, and most of us have never been, but have always wondered, the impact of the King and now the Queen. We'll start with her impact on music and culture.
Well, hers was huge. And that's an understatement. She, of course, started, she was born here, moved to Detroit when she was 2, grew up in her father's church singing gospel. Matter of fact, one of the people told me standing in the yard last night, and by the way, this woman was named Aretha. She was named for her. And she was talking about how the things that really get her when she listens to Aretha Franklin's music are the gospel recordings, because that's what she remembers growing up as a child in her house. Her mom and dad had all the records. And that kind of goes along with a lot of the same stories I would hear from Elvis fans. This is a direct tie to their childhood and their memories. And think about it. When you hear a song that has a certain memory attached to it for you, from high school or from childhood or whatever, it really brings back strong emotions.
Sure. For me, it would be TLC. What About Your Friends?
Well, see, everybody's got a different story, Kevin.
I know you were on such a roll, and I apologize. I couldn't help myself. Or Biz Marquee, She's Just a Friend, but that would go into...
I was about to say, at least it's not Pia Zadora, so,
Or Samantha Fox.
You could break out a little clapping song there.
Right.
But, but yeah, it's just, she did so much for the soul genre and for female artists especially. Everybody that's come behind her, basically, is there because she went there first. There's the Stax Museum of American Soul is actually here in Memphis. It's on the site where the old Stax recording studio used to be. And they have a museum now. It's also got a school next door, the Soulsville Academy. And in that area, they kind of call it Soulsville now because the area of Memphis where this is located turned out several iconic and influential soul singers and people who played on soul albums. I think there's something like maybe 10 of them in a very short diameter around this area. It was just, this was a hotbed for talent. Maurice White, Earth, Wind & Fire, grew up there. Booker T. Jones of Booker T. and the MGs he grew up there and played there at Stax, of course. Memphis is full of music history, and it's not just Sun Records and Graceland, although those are two gigantic parts of it.
Got to ask you about Elvis on Elvis Week and Graceland itself. People that have been always say, well, it's not what you think it is.
I'm kind of curious as to what they thought it was going to be.
Well, I guess more ornate, more elaborate, like these McMansions, these big houses they have today. I think they're comparing it to.
Yeah. Well, for its time, it was kind of a McMansion because, remember, Elvis came from extremely humble beginnings. He was born in a shotgun house, basically, in Tupelo, Mississippi. And when they moved to Memphis, he wanted to buy his mama a nice house. And that is why he found Graceland. And it's, on this big hill back up off the road with this, fence around the whole thing. And it's, it's small by McMansion comparison these days, but back then it was huge. He had plenty of room. He had, horses in the back, fenced in area. He had a racquetball court building. He had an office building back behind, a small building, but it was where he and Vernon had their office. So it's much bigger than it probably would have been at the time. But when you go in it, it is like walking into a time capsule because I'm telling you, that 70s kitchen, 60s, 70s kitchen is just, it will, if you're of a certain age and you can remember paneling, it will take you back. I'm just telling you.
No, I agree. And, of course, remembering the great Aretha Franklin and Elvis Presley. Tanya J. Powers, what was it like to be home?
Always good to be home.
Yeah.
Always good to be home.
Did you check out that Time magazine yet about the South? That Southern issue?
No, I have not, but I know which one you're talking about, and I have bookmarked the website. I was not able to get an actual physical copy of it, but I have got it bookmarked because that's on my to-do list when I head back. I'm probably going to read that on the plane.
Yeah, it is wonderful, you being a native Southerner. Tanya J. Powers, safe travels, and thank you, ma'am.
Sure, thank you.
All right, our great friend, Tanya J. Powers. If you're just tuning in, before we were remembering the King and Queen, we were one of soul, one of rock and roll. We're talking about this baseball stadium downtown. The state board has given Boise State the approval, if needed, to use eminent domain to build a collegiate baseball stadium. I just don't think there's a need for it, a want for it. It doesn't serve the public good. Pete, Mountain Home, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Kevin, I'm a little off that topic, but I had a thought after hearing the story about the man arrested for leaving his baby in the hot car.
Yeah.
There is a very easy way to prevent that if you're a parent. And you don't even need a law that says you have to do this. All you have to do is when you put the kid in the baby seat in the back seat of your car, put your cell phone in the back seat with the kid. You're not supposed to use the cell phone when you're driving anyway, so you shouldn't have it with you, right? You don't need it. Put it back there with the kid, and I will guarantee you they might forget the kid. They won't forget the cell phone.
A sad commentary on life.
It is, but you know what? It would work.
No, you are correct. Yeah,
they do not forget. They may leave the kid there and wander off, but they will not forget. In fact, it will probably be driving them nuts while they're driving, knowing the cell phone is not next to their heart or wherever they normally keep it. But that would stop them from leaving the kid in the back seat of the car.
Great point, Pete. Anything else?
Well, that, and I think you're right on the baseball stadium. I think it's another of Mayor Beater's attempt to see if he can spend as much money on stupid stuff as Portland and San Francisco do.
Right, because we want to be just like them.
Yeah. Make Idaho Venezuela.
Thank you, Pete. You take care.
You too, Kev.
All right, our great friend Pete from Ohio, where all good things come from. Let's go to Hank, looking for his perspective on the baseball stadium. Dr. Custer in Boise State on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. I think that there was for one thing, Dr. Custer used deceit, I think, and lied to the people in the wrestling program what he was up to and misrepresented, I think, his whole course of action in this. And the thing is, the abuse of the State Board of Education to be using their power for eminent domain for something that is, you're correct, recreational purposes, but something that will also ultimately lose money. And this is being done on the backs of the students. I mean, the fee increases and everything else that go on in this for basically a matter of prestige to Dr. Custer and the institution, and I think that's wrong. And the other thing that this is why I was disappointed that Brad Little won the governorship or the primary, because primarily he was the least of all the gubernatorial candidates, the least able to change things. Brad's go along, get along routine isn't going to work when you have to be sometimes confrontational in terms of taking a new direction for the State Board of Education and basically reining in personalities like Custer. And Brad Little is the last person in the world to do that.
Well, let's delve into that, because that's my favorite topic. So you have Brad Little that you say is not confrontational. You have Raul Labrador that people would say is too confrontational. What about Dr. Alquist? Wasn't he in the middle?
Well, the problem with Dr. Alquist was he was in bed with these people. I mean, that was my problem with fully trusting him. He was developer. He worked with Custer. That was why I could not warm to his candidacy, because he was too close to these people. basically Raul would have changed not only policy at the state board, but also the penitentiary and a lot of things. He was knowledgeable. He knew the details, and he wasn't beholden to so many of the money interests that Brad is beholden to, and that's the problem.
One would say that might have cost him because he had no money.
Well, it did cost him,
Yeah.
and then the problem, and then of course, be running from a congressional candidate that also hurt him. But he was by far the best man for the job because there needs to be a change in direction in this state. Butch,
I don't mean to interrupt, but let me just go to that. You know, somebody said something to me once, and it's changed my whole life and philosophy. He goes, Kevin, you're right. You're right. You should do this on principle. But in the end, you still have to be a realist. And back to Congressman Labrador, one of the more fascinating folks, he would have been the most conservative candidate there. But because of the confrontational nature, because he rubbed people the wrong way, some people, that's just facts. Look, I rub people the wrong way. It didn't work out. Your thoughts?
Well, but if you're looking for what's best for the people of Idaho and the taxpayers and getting what's been going on with the penitentiary and the corruption and some of the corruption, the inside politics and the corruption that's been going on in the Otter administration, Brad's not the one to be doing the job. He's not temperamentally, and he's too close to these people to do the job of cleaning up state government.
You have to get elected first. It's like somebody said something to me first, Hank, when I first got here. You can't be against everything.
Yeah, you have to pick and choose your battles.
Yes.
I don't disagree with you there.
And I don't think that he ever did that.
Well, and you have a point there. I think you do. But also you got the other extreme like Brad where you don't pick any battles at all, just business as usual.
Right, but now he is the guy. You and I could talk for hours and hours on this. I've got to run, but Hank, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. More of you with me next. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio.
Wednesday morning at 6:05, Dinesh D'Souza will be joining us for the entire hour. Dinesh D'Souza, that is Wednesday at 6:05 a.m. Talking about his new movie. Joining us now, Cindy from Caldwell on KIDO Talk Radio, and now the end is near.
Yes, but no, my end is never near. You're talking about souls this morning and soul music and the gospel and, oh my goodness, I will probably be on the road. I don't know if I'll be able to pick you up with Dinesh D'Souza, Death of a Nation. And Kevin, I was blessed yesterday with a bunch of gentlemen, you included, to sit there and, I thought of Dinesh's movie and I thought, here I am blessed to have chosen to come to Idaho, not because of anything else, because after living and being in elections in very blue states, I wanted to pick the strongest, God help me, conservative state. It wasn't Mountain Home like I first wanted to go to, but he knew where I needed to be. So in trusting my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, I just find it amazing this morning. You are incredible. The gentleman that I was with yesterday, true patriots, true Americans. My heart is just overwhelmed. I'm looking at these beautiful white roses, which to me are standing for purity. I think, Terry, I'm just going to say it. Thank you because, I love thinking about nothing righteous in me but the blood that my Lord and Savior Jesus
Christ. Right, for people
said.
That weren't at the lunch, which is everybody listening,
yeah.
We had a goodbye lunch for you at the Indian Creek Steakhouse with Tea Party Bob and Terry, and Terry bought you flowers.
And I got these white roses. But you know what? I'm sure there's a lot of flowers being laid today for Aretha. And Aretha, and I love soul gospel music. And I'm putting right now, believe it or not, a record because I have a record player, and it's Elvis's Christmas album. And I'm looking at it, and although Elvis, we can fall aboard this so-called ship of state, but he has a song on it, and it's called "Take My Hand, Precious Lord." So you know what? You can go take your knees all you want on earth now. You can't destroy matter. The soul, the spirit, I believe I'm not getting no I don't mean this to be mean-spirited, but I'm not getting dragged behind any veil. I'm not going to live on any old planet. If I never see any of you again, I know those that have trusted Jesus, that little baby girl, my Bible says that's the gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, that little baby girl that died, we have psychosis, we have all kinds of things in the world of today since the fall, Genesis 1. So that little baby girl is probably with my brother Eric right now in heaven that died in Boise, and that's the gospel fact. I have trusted in him. I have been blessed by the people, of Idaho. And so I'm not at all concerned that, his truth will march on. That was the last song sung, and guess what? In Dinesh's movie. It was, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and they sang that black gospel choir. They were singing, about my Jesus. And I'm just holding on to my Jesus. He has saved me, and I've been blessed to be here. So if I never see you again, Kevin Miller, I'm hoping to make a big U-turn, or Bob, or Terry. True men, true alpha men who stand for everything right in America. I just want to you all to know that you have been my encouragement for 3 years here, and we'll see what my good Lord allows, because I do trust the gospel, and I know where I'm going because of my Jesus.
So quickly, Cindy, this is you got 10 seconds left. Do you want to say goodbye to everybody?
I'm going to say to my Russian friend that I just met, Das Vidanya, and that's like aloha. What that means is until our next meeting. So Dimitri, you keep calling in. So Das Vidanya,
Cindy,
and that's Russian.
God bless. Godspeed.
I'll
Thank you.
be seeing Natasha tonight at the concert. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good morning, Dave.